wonder if the door would open wide. Never had to question, never had to hide. Walking through this world with invisible armor on. Never knew to wait until I saw what I've been standing on. Coffee shops and corner stores, smiles that came for free. Never earned a single one, they just saw the skin on me. Thought I knew the struggle, thought I understood the pain, till I wore a different face and felt the acid rain. Every day, that's what he told me. Every day, now I finally see.
This is the skin I'm in.
Just pain and privilege showing.
This is the skin I'm in.
Seeds I never knew I was sowing. Invisible walls I never had to climb. Invisible chains I benefited from this whole time.
This is the skin I'm in.
And I can wash it off, but they can't, they can't, they can't. Broke down on the wrong side, fear racing through my veins. Taught to see the danger, taught to see the stains, but Gloria brought me water. Jerome fixed what broke. Young men on the corner just trying to help this fool who choked. Auto parts store 3 times passed them by. Served me with a quickness, barely caught his eye. Same stores I've been shopping, same face behind the glass. Never saw the difference between first place and last. Every day, living in suspicion. Every day, never got permission.
Is it the skin I'm in?
Just pain and privilege showing. Oh,
This is the skin I'm in.
seeds I never knew I was sowing. Invisible walls I never had to climb. Invisible chains I benefited from this whole time.
This is the skin I'm in.
And I can wash it off, but they can't, they can't, they can't. Paint running down the drain, brown water, white porcelain, washing off the shame. But the shame ain't in the color, the shame is in the game. The shame is 42 years of never knowing their name, never feeling their pain, never seeing the cage, never reading the page. They've been writing since the day that the ships came. I see you now, I finally see you. Not through fear, not through statistics, not through news reports and evening horror stories. I see you as you are, as you've always been. Human, struggling, surviving, thriving despite it all. And I'm sorry, God, I'm so sorry that it took this long.
This is the skin
Just pain and privilege showing. All your begging now, drink your blood. Seeds I never knew I was
every day, I finally see.
Author's note. This story is not written to accuse, shame, or provoke defensiveness. It is written to observe. The Skin I'm In is a work of fiction inspired by lived realities, shared experiences, and moments of awakening that often arrive uninvited. It reflects how proximity, vulnerability, and human connection can dismantle assumptions faster than statistics or arguments ever could. This story is not meant to suggest that empathy can be achieved through imitation, nor does it claim that one day of discomfort equates to a lifetime of lived experience. It exists to explore a simple truth. Many people do not understand what they benefit from because they have never been required to notice it. The events depicted are not exaggerated. For many, they are ordinary. This story asks readers, especially those who have never had to question how they move through the world, to sit with that reality without rushing to resolve it, explain it away, or make themselves the hero of it. If the story unsettles you, that discomfort is part of the conversation, not a flaw in it. Content warning. This story contains depictions of racial bias and systemic discrimination, social profiling and surveillance, emotional distress related to identity and belonging, conversations surrounding racism and privilege. While there is no graphic violence, the emotional and psychological experiences portrayed may be difficult for some readers. Reader discretion is advised. The Skin I'm In. The engine sputtered twice before dying completely. David Richardson felt his stomach drop as the Mercedes lost power, the steering wheel going stiff in his hands as he coasted toward the curb. He'd been cutting through this neighborhood to avoid traffic on the interstate, a shortcut his GPS had suggested, and now he was paying for it. 42 years old, insurance adjuster, lived in the suburbs his whole life. David was the kind of white guy who'd never had a reason to think too hard about race because he'd never had to. He voted. He considered himself a good person. He didn't use slurs, didn't tell racist jokes. He figured that was enough. But now his car was dead on a street he didn't recognize, in a neighborhood he'd only seen on the evening news when something bad happened. The Hood. That's what people called it. Row houses with iron bars on the windows, corner stores with faded signs and plexiglass at the counter, people sitting on stoops even though it was barely past noon on a Tuesday, young men on corners, music playing from somewhere. The kind of place his wife Jennifer would clutch her purse tighter if they accidentally drove through it. David's hands were still gripping the steering wheel even though the car wasn't moving anymore. His heart hammered in his chest. He could feel sweat forming on his forehead despite the cool spring air. He'd heard the stories, read the headlines, watch the news segments about crime statistics and gang violence. This was the kind of place you didn't stop in, even for gas, even in broad daylight. But here he was, broken down, stranded, with an important meeting in 2 hours that could make or break a promotion he'd been working toward for 3 years. He took a deep breath and pulled out his phone. Called AAA. The woman who answered sounded cheerful, professional. Roadside assistance, how can I help you today? Yeah, hi. My car just died. I need a tow truck. Absolutely, sir. I can help you with that. Can you confirm your location for me? David looked up at the street sign. Read off the intersection. There was a pause, a long one. He could hear her typing. Sir, I'm very sorry, but that location is outside our service area. We don't dispatch tow trucks to that area. What? What do you mean you don't? I pay for coverage. I pay every month for this service. I understand your frustration, sir, but that's a restricted zone. It's a safety concern for our drivers. I can give you the number for. David hung up. His hands were shaking now. He tried another towing company, then another. The responses were all the same, just with varying degrees of honesty about why. We don't service that area, sir. That's outside our coverage zone. And then the last one, a guy who just didn't bother to sugarcoat it. Man, I'm not sending my driver into that neighborhood. You're on your own. Try calling someone local. Local, right, like David knew anyone local. He sat there, windows up, doors locked, air conditioning still running on battery power that was probably draining whatever juice he had left. People walked by. Some glanced at his car, some woman with a shopping cart full of groceries, an older man walking a pit bull, kids on bikes. And then he saw them. A group of young black men on the corner, maybe 5 or 6 of them, wearing hoodies and baggy jeans. They'd noticed his car. One of them pointed, said something to the others. They started walking toward him. David's breath caught in his throat. This is it, he thought. This is how it happens. This is how I end up on the news. White man found dead in his Mercedes. Robbery gone wrong. Carjacking. Whatever they'd call it. The young men got closer. David could see their faces now. Couldn't have been more than 19, 20 years old. One of them had tattoos creeping up his neck. Another wore a red bandana hanging from his back pocket. They surrounded his car. One of them knocked on the window. David flinched. Yo, you good, man? The voice was muffled through the glass. David didn't move, didn't answer. His hand hovered near his phone, wondering if he should call 911. But what would he say? Some black guys are standing near my car. The knock came again, harder this time. Yo, you hear me? Your car broke down or what? David finally looked up, made eye contact with the one doing the talking. Younger than he thought, maybe 18. Had kind eyes, actually, even though his expression was hard. Slowly, David cracked the window, just an inch. You stuck? The young man asked. Yeah, car just died. Pop the hood. What? Pop the hood, man. Let me see what's wrong with it. David hesitated. Was this a trick? Were they going to grab something from under the hood? Pull him out of the car? Another one of the young men spoke up, taller, with a scar across his eyebrow. Man, you think we gonna rob you or something? He laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. Look at you, scared as hell. We just trying to help, man. Hold up. This voice came from behind them. David looked and saw an older woman coming down the steps of the nearest house. She was heavy-set, wearing a floral dress and slippers, her hair wrapped in a scarf. Y'all leave that man alone. Can't you see he's already nervous? We just trying to help, Miss Gloria, the first young man said. I know what you're trying to do, Darnell. I also know how it look. She walked up to David's window, her face softer than her voice had been. Baby, your car broke down? David nodded. These boys giving you a hard time? I don't know. They ain't gonna hurt you. They just nosy. Always gotta be in everybody's business. She shot a look at the young men. Y'all got better things to do than stand around a broke down car. Go on somewhere. Miss Gloria, I know what you was doing. Now go on. The young men backed off, but David could hear them muttering. One of them said something about scared white boy, and they all laughed as they walked away. David's face burned with shame and anger, but mostly shame because they were right. He had been scared. Terrified, actually. Miss Gloria leaned closer to the window. You call a tow truck? Yeah, 3 of them. Nobody will come here. She nodded like she'd expected that answer. They never do. Won't service this area. Say it's too dangerous, but really they just don't want to deal with black folks. You ain't the first person to get stuck here and find that out. She straightened up, thinking, you got somewhere you need to be? A meeting. Important one. But at this point, David looked at his watch. There was no way he was making it. Well, you can't just sit here all day. And you sure can't leave your car here overnight. What you got in there? Laptop? Briefcase? David nodded. Then you definitely can't leave it. Don't matter what color you are. You leave a nice car like this sitting here with valuables in it, it'll get broken into. That's just the reality. Opportunity makes a thief, and folks around here got more need than opportunity, if you know what I mean. More people had started gathering. Not threatening, just curious. An older man in a button-up shirt and suspenders. A younger woman with a baby on her hip. A middle-aged guy in work boots covered in paint. The guy in work boots walked up. Car trouble? Won't start? Miss Gloria said. You know anything about cars? He asked David. Not really. I always take it to the dealership. A few of the gathered neighbors exchanged glances, the kind of glances that said everything about the different worlds they lived in. The man in work boots said. My name's Curtis. I know a little something about cars. Not a mechanic, but I know some folks. Let me make a call. He pulled out his phone and walked a few steps away. David could hear him talking, explaining the situation. When he came back, he was nodding. My boy Jerome can come look at it. He's good with cars. Does it on the side, fixes up people's rides in the neighborhood. He ain't gonna charge you an arm and a leg like them dealerships do. Okay. Thank you. He'll be here in about 20 minutes. You can wait inside if you want. Miss Gloria makes a mean lemonade. David looked at these strangers, these black faces surrounding his car in this neighborhood he'd been taught to fear, and felt something shift. They weren't threatening him. They were helping him. David turned off the engine, grabbed his briefcase, and stepped out of the car. The afternoon sun hit him, warmer than he'd expected. He looked around, really looked this time, not through the lens of fear. Kids playing in a yard down the street, someone's grandmother sitting on a porch shelling peas. Normal life, just people living. He followed Miss Gloria up the steps into her house. It was small but immaculately clean, smelled like pine cleaner and something cooking on the stove. Photos on every wall, children, grandchildren probably, graduation pictures, military photos, family reunions. Sit down, baby. You want some water? Lemonade? Water's fine, thank you. She brought him a glass of ice water in a cup that said "World's Best Grandma." David drank it and felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. 23 minutes later, David checked his watch. There was a knock at the door. Miss Gloria let in a man who looked to be in his late 30s, lean and muscular, wearing a grease-stained t-shirt and jeans. He had kind eyes and a ready smile. "You the gentleman with the Mercedes?" David stood. "Yeah, David Richardson." "Jerome Walker." They shook hands. "Let's go see what we got." They walked back outside. Jerome popped the hood and started poking around, checking connections, testing things David didn't understand. After about 10 minutes, he straightened up. "It's your battery. You got a loose wire that's been draining it." Wire probably been loose for a while, just finally drained it completely. Plus the battery itself is dead now. Gonna need a new one. "Can you fix it?" "Sure can. Need to get you a new battery first though. There's an auto parts store about 15 minutes from here. You want to ride with me?" David hesitated. Get in a car with a strange black man in a neighborhood he didn't know? But then he thought about Miss Gloria's lemonade, Curtis's phone call, the way these people had helped him when no one else would, when the tow truck companies had literally refused to serve this area. "Yeah, okay. Let me just lock my car." Jerome's car was an old Chevy truck, well maintained despite its age. They drove through the neighborhood, and David noticed things he hadn't seen before. A church with a beautiful garden, a community center with kids playing basketball outside, a barbershop with old men sitting outside talking. Life. Community. Not the war zone he'd imagined. They crossed into a different neighborhood after about 10 minutes. David noticed the change immediately. The houses got bigger, the lawns got greener, the cars got newer, and the faces got whiter. They pulled into an auto parts store, one of those big chain places. Jerome led the way inside. The store was busy, customers browsing aisles, employees in red vests helping people. Jerome walked up to the counter, waited. An employee walked right past him, made eye contact, and then helped a white customer who just walked in behind them. Jerome waited, patient. Another employee did the same thing, saw Jerome, acknowledged him with a glance, then turned to help someone else. David watched this happen 3 times, 3 different employees, 3 different white customers who'd arrived after Jerome. Each time, Jerome was passed over, ignored, made invisible. Something started burning in David's chest, a feeling he couldn't quite name. Was this? No, they wouldn't. Not this, obviously. Not in 2024, but they were. The 4th employee, a young white guy with acne and a nervous expression, approached the counter. "Can I help?" He started to look past Jerome to the customer behind them. "Yeah, you can help him," David said, his voice louder than he intended. "He's been standing here for 10 minutes. I know you all have seen him. I've watched 3 of your coworkers walk right past him to help other people who came in after us." The employee's face went red. Sorry, I didn't." "Yes, you did. You all did. Now are you going to help him, or do I need to speak to a manager?" "No, sir. No. What can I help you with?" The employee was looking at Jerome now. Finally, Jerome's expression hadn't changed. Like he'd expected this. Like this was normal. "Need a battery for a 2019 Mercedes E-Class." The employee looked it up, got the battery, rang it up. The whole transaction took maybe 5 minutes, something that should have happened 10 minutes ago. Something that would have happened immediately if Jerome had been white. They walked back to the truck in silence. David's hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from fear. "That happened a lot?" he finally asked as Jerome started the engine. Jerome glanced at him. What, the store thing? Yeah, every day. Every day, Jerome repeated. Grocery store, bank, restaurant, don't matter. If I'm in a white neighborhood, I'm either invisible or I'm a threat. Ain't no in between. David wanted to say it was unbelievable, but he'd just seen it with his own eyes. That's fucked up. Jerome laughed, but there was no humor in it. Welcome to my world, man. They drove back to the neighborhood in silence. David's mind was racing. How many times had he seen this happen and not noticed? How many times had he been that other customer, the one who got help first and just thought it was good timing? Good luck? Never questioning why he never had to wait, why service always came easy, why doors always opened. Back at Miss Gloria's street, Jerome got to work on the car. He replaced the battery, fixed the loose wire, and had the Mercedes running in under 30 minutes. David stood there watching, still processing everything he'd witnessed at the auto parts store. You're all set, Jerome said, wiping his hands on a rag. What do I owe you? For the battery, whatever the store charged. For the labor, don't worry about it. No, come on, you spent your time. Man, you already helped me out at that store. Consider us even. But David couldn't let it go. These people had helped him when no one else would. When his own people, white people, tow truck companies, the whole system he'd always relied on, had refused to serve this neighborhood. And he'd seen with his own eyes what Jerome dealt with every single day. He pulled out his wallet and handed Jerome 5 20s. $100. Man, that's too much. It's not enough. Not for what you did. Not for. David struggled to find the words. Not for putting up with that bullshit at the store. And honestly, considering what those dudes on the corner were probably planning before everyone stepped in, this is the least I can do. Jerome smiled, a real smile this time, and took the money. I appreciate it. Miss Gloria came back outside. Jerome, get you fixed up? Yeah, all good now. Well, you can't leave without eating. I just finished cooking and I made way too much. You got time? David checked his watch. The meeting was long gone. He'd already texted his boss, explained he'd had car trouble. At this point, what was another hour? Yeah, I got time. Miss Gloria's house smelled incredible when they walked back inside. She'd made fried chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, cornbread, candied yams, soul food, the real deal. She fixed David a plate that could have fed 3 people and set it in front of him at her small kitchen table. Jerome sat down too, along with Curtis, who'd apparently been invited as well. David took a bite of the chicken and nearly groaned. It was perfect. Crispy on the outside, tender and juicy on the inside, seasoned so well he could taste every flavor. The mac and cheese was creamy and rich, the kind made from scratch with real cheese, not from a box. The greens had just the right amount of vinegar and spice. The cornbread was sweet and moist. Miss Gloria, David shook his head. This is the best meal I've had in my life. She beamed. That's because I cook with love, baby. Food don't taste right if you don't put love in it. They ate and talked. Curtis told stories about growing up in the neighborhood, about how it used to be before the factories closed, before the drugs came in, before the white flight took all the money and resources with it. Jerome talked about his kids, about trying to keep them safe, keep them in school, keep them away from the streets. Miss Gloria talked about her grandkids, about church, about the community garden they'd started 2 blocks over. David listened, really listened, and he realized he'd never had a conversation like this before. Never sat at a table with black people and just talked, just existed as humans sharing a meal and stories. All his life, black people had been abstractions, statistics, news reports, people he passed on the street or saw from a distance, never real, never 3-dimensional, never this. The whole experience had lasted about 4 hours by the time David finally got back in his Mercedes. The car started perfectly. He thanked everyone again, exchanged phone numbers with Jerome, promised to come back and visit Miss Gloria. He drove home in silence, his mind churning. When he walked into his house, Jennifer looked up from her laptop. Oh my God, I was so worried. What happened? You didn't answer my calls. Car broke down. Where? In the hood, over on the east side. Jennifer's eyes went wide. Oh my God, are you okay? Did anyone bother you? No, actually the opposite. They helped me. He told her the story, but even as he said the words, he could tell she wasn't really hearing it. She was stuck on the part about him being in that neighborhood, about the danger he must have been in, about how lucky he was nothing happened. "You should have called the police," she said. "For what? The people there helped me. Nobody threatened me." Still, you never know in those neighborhoods. David looked at his wife, this woman he'd been married to for 15 years, and felt a distance he'd never felt before. She didn't get it. She couldn't get it. Because she hadn't been there, hadn't seen what he'd seen. That night, David couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Jerome at the auto parts store, about Miss Gloria's kindness, about those young men on the corner who he'd been so terrified of, who'd just been trying to help, about the tow truck companies that wouldn't service that area, about the look on Jerome's face when he said, "every day." Around 2 a.m., David got out of bed, went to the bathroom, stared at himself in the mirror. And then he had an idea, a crazy idea, an idea that would probably get him in trouble, that people would misunderstand, that might blow up in his face. But he had to know, had to really know. He opened the cabinet under the sink where Jennifer kept her makeup and beauty supplies, found what he was looking for. Face paint, the kind they use for Halloween costumes, dark brown, almost black. He started applying it to his face, carefully covering every inch of visible skin. His face, his neck, his ears, his hands. He put on an old hoodie, some jeans, looked at himself in the mirror. He looked ridiculous. He knew that. This wasn't really what it was like to be black. Paint on his face didn't give him the lived experience, the history, the generational trauma. He knew that. But he had to see, had to know if what happened to Jerome would happen to him. He waited until morning, got in his car, drove to his own neighborhood, the neighborhood he'd lived in for 10 years. First stop, his regular coffee shop, the one where they knew his order by heart. Large dark roast, room for cream. He walked in. The barista looked at him, through him. No recognition. "Can I help you?" Cold, professional. Nothing like the warm greeting David usually got. "Yeah, large dark roast, room for cream." She made the coffee, handed it to him. Didn't smile, didn't make small talk. Just transaction. Totally different from how she usually treated him. He paid and left. Next, the grocery store. His usual grocery store where he shopped every week. He walked in and immediately felt eyes on him. The security guard by the entrance started following him. Not obviously, but David noticed. Down one aisle, then another, always about 20 feet behind. David picked up a basket, started shopping. The security guard kept following. He picked up some apples, a loaf of bread, some chicken, normal shopping. But the guard didn't stop following. At the checkout, the cashier barely looked at him. When David's phone rang and he answered it, a call from work he had to take, the cashier huffed impatiently, rolled her eyes at the next cashier. David had answered his phone while checking out 100 times before. No one had ever cared. Next, the bank, his bank, where he had his checking account, savings account, mortgage. He walked up to the teller, a young white woman he'd seen before, though he didn't know her name. "I'd like to make a withdrawal. Do you have an account with us?" "Yes." "Can I see your ID?" David pulled out his driver's license. The teller looked at it, looked at him, looked at the ID again. Her expression was suspicious. "This doesn't look like you." "It's me. I'm just wearing makeup. It's for a thing." "Sir, I can't process a withdrawal if I can't verify your identity." "It's me, David Richardson. I've banked here for 8 years. I'm going to need to get my manager." The manager came over. An older white man David had spoken to many times before. He'd helped David set up his mortgage, had congratulated him on his promotion 2 years ago. No recognition, none. "Sir, what seems to be the problem?" "I'm trying to make a withdrawal from my account. She won't let me because of the makeup." The manager looked at David like he was insane. "Sir, we need to verify your identity to access the account. If you can't provide proper identification, this is me." David pulled off his hood, pulled out his wallet, showed multiple IDs, credit cards with his name. The manager studied them all, looked at David's face. Finally, reluctantly, he nodded to the teller, processed the withdrawal. But his expression said he still didn't believe it, said he thought David was trying to pull something. It went on like this all day. Every store David normally shopped at, every restaurant he'd eaten at 100 times. People who should have known him, his dry cleaner, his pharmacist, the guy at the gas station, they all looked right through him. Or worse, they looked at him with suspicion, with fear, with disgust. At the dry cleaner, they told him they didn't have his order ready, even though he dropped it off 3 days ago, and they'd called to say it was done. At the pharmacy, they made him wait while they verified his prescription, something they'd never done before. At a restaurant where he was a regular, where he'd eaten lunch every Friday for 2 years, the hostess told him there was a 45-minute wait. He could see empty tables, could see a white couple walk in after him and get seated immediately. Nobody recognized him. Not one person. They'd never actually looked at his face, he realized. They'd only ever seen his skin color. White skin meant safe, meant trustworthy, meant good customer. The pain on his face changed everything. By the end of the day, David was exhausted, not physically, but emotionally, spiritually. He felt hollowed out, raw, angry in a way he'd never experienced before. This was every day. This was Jerome's every day, Miss Gloria's every day, every black person's every day. The looks, the suspicion, the way people moved away from you on the sidewalk, clutched their purses tighter, followed you in stores, treated you like a criminal for existing, refused to see you as human. Every single day. David drove home as the sun was setting, his face still painted, his heart heavy with a weight he finally understood, even if only a fraction of it. Jennifer was already in bed when he got home. He went straight to the bathroom, locked the door, and started washing the paint off. It took forever. The brown staining the white washcloth, the water running dark in the sink. When his face was finally clean again, he stared at himself in the mirror. Same face as this morning. But he wasn't the same person. He dried his face, left the bathroom, went down to his home office, opened his laptop, opened Facebook, started recording a video. His hands shook as he pressed the record button. "I don't know who needs to hear this," he started, his voice cracking, "but I need to say it. I need to apologize." He took a breath. "My name is David Richardson. I'm a 42-year-old white man from the suburbs, and until yesterday I didn't understand racism. I thought I did. I thought because I didn't use slurs, because I voted the right way, because I considered myself a good person, that I wasn't part of the problem. I was wrong." The words came pouring out. He told the story of breaking down in the hood, of the kindness he'd received, of Jerome at the auto parts store, of Miss Gloria's cooking, of the community that helped him when his own people wouldn't. "And then today," he said, his voice breaking, "I did something that a lot of people are going to think is wrong. I painted my face to see what it was like, to see if what I witnessed happening to my new friend Jerome would happen to me in my own neighborhood, the neighborhood I've lived in for a decade." He had to stop, had to wipe his eyes. It did. Everything I saw happen to him happened to me. Worse. Because the people in my neighborhood, people who have known me for years, people who've smiled at me and chatted with me and served me 1,000 times, they didn't recognize me. They looked right at me and didn't see me. They saw skin color. They saw a threat. They saw something less than human. His voice was shaking now. "I went to my bank, where I've had accounts for 8 years, where the manager helped me set up my mortgage, and he looked at me like I was trying to rob the place. I went to my coffee shop where I go every morning, and the barista who knows my order by heart treated me like a stranger. I went to my grocery store and got followed by security like I was going to steal something." He wiped his eyes again. "This is what black people live with every single day. Every single day. And I had no idea. I had no fucking idea because I never had to know. Because my skin color has protected me from ever having to think about it. My skin color opens doors, gets me hired, gets me served first, gets me the benefit of the doubt, gets me seen as human." He looked directly into the camera. "I'm making this video because I'm done being silent. I'm done pretending that racism is someone else's problem. I'm done thinking that because I'm not actively racist, I'm not part of the problem. Because I am, we all are. Every white person who benefits from this system and doesn't speak up, doesn't push back, doesn't demand better, we're all part of the problem." His voice softened. "To the black community, I'm sorry. I'm sorry it took me 42 years to get it. I'm sorry it took breaking down in your neighborhood and experiencing your kindness for me to finally see what you've been saying all along. I'm sorry that you have to live like this. that your children have to live like this, that your parents live like this, and their parents, and their parents. I'm sorry that the burden has always been on you to prove your humanity while we get to just assume ours. He took a shaky breath. I don't know what to do with this knowledge now that I have it, but I know I can't unknow it. I can't unsee it. And I know I have a responsibility to speak up, to use the privilege I have, the privilege I didn't ask for but benefit from every day, to try to change this. I don't know if this video will change anything. Probably not. But I had to say something. I had to try. He looked into the camera for a long moment. To my black brothers and sisters, I see you now. I finally see you. And I'm so sorry it took this long. He ended the recording. His face was wet with tears. His hands were still shaking. He watched the video back once. It was raw, emotional, probably too long. People would criticize it, would say he was virtue signaling or trying to get attention or that the stunt with the face paint was offensive. But it was true. It was honest. And he had to share it. He posted it to Facebook, added a caption, "A reckoning." Then he closed his laptop and went upstairs. Jennifer was asleep. He climbed into bed beside her but knew he wouldn't sleep. Outside, the world went on like it always had, unjust, unequal, unaware. But David was different now. He'd seen behind the veil. He'd felt, for just one day, a tiny fraction of what black people felt every day of their lives, and he could never go back to not knowing. The video was already getting views. Comments were starting to come in, some supportive, some angry, some calling him a hero, some calling him a fraud. It didn't matter. None of it mattered. All that mattered was that he finally opened his eyes, and he could never close them again.